So, ladies and gentlemen, the streets were never a real place, but rappers are only now starting to push back against the concept of the streets because they want to protect one of their besties because right now he doesn't look good. So before we dive into it, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like and subscribe button. My name is Mfasis. I'm an artist and a content creator, and I do videos talking about things related to music and content creation that I find interesting. And this to me is very interesting. So, Lil Woody, former YSL associate, I'm not going to get into his whole story. It doesn't really matter, with all due respect. Long story short, due to how he handled the YSL case, he fell out with Young Thug. Young Thug has, on top of insulting Gunna, Young Thug has gone out of his way to insult Lil Woody or whatever. But recently, Lil Woody did an interview with DJ Akademiks where he gave his perspective on the things that happened, and it surprisingly was a very interesting watch, believe it or not. It was a little hard to get through initially because he does a terrible job of articulating himself. However, when you actually take a second to really listen to what he's talking about and like actually dissect what he just said, he's not necessarily a dumb guy. He shows the ability to have not only critical thinking but also a high level of self-awareness, which these are things that require intelligence, obviously. But one point that he pointed out that I also said when talking about this whole Gunna and Young Thug and 21 Savage, all this stuff that's going on, one thing that he said was Gunna should not forgive these guys. And I agree. A few days ago when I made a video talking about this, I said, bro, if I'm not gonna reconcile with these guys. For what? There's no point to reconcile. There's no point of trying to patch things up with these guys and reconcile. There's no point. There's no point whatsoever. These guys literally tried to blackball me for like 2 years and they failed. And now I'm hotter than them. And on top of that, they're struggling to do the same numbers that they used to do previously. And now I'm supposed to turn back around and try to work things out with them? No. Because if they had actually gotten their way, they were never going to come back around and try to work things out with Gunna. That was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. Don't listen to some of these biased people who are trying to make it seem like, oh, nah, that's not the case. They're just maturing, or, they just some loyal people. Nah, bullshit. Bullshit. They're only saying what they're saying now because they're falling off, unfortunately. That's just the reality of the situation. And they're trying to save face. They're trying to save face not only to try to get their careers back on track from a commercial success standpoint, but also they're trying to maintain whatever's left of their reputations. And that brings me to the main point of this video, which is obviously, as we all know, over the past couple of days, these street rappers have started to push a movement of where they say fuck the streets. Now, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't already guess, I'm sure you already guessed, I am a civilian. I don't care about the streets. I don't. Like I've been telling y'all, the streets doesn't exist, ladies and gentlemen. It does not exist. It is literally a mindset. It's not a real place. It is a mindset. If it was a real place, it wouldn't. So, guys, y'all gotta understand, all it takes to eliminate the streets, what you guys think is the streets, all it takes is Starbucks, the police visiting more than twice a month, and a couple of hipsters. That's all it takes, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in New York City, where when I was a kid in the 2000s, there were certain parts of New York City that were absolutely disgusting. They were desolate. They were dumpsters. You think about parts of New York like Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I don't know, some of y'all might not be from New York, but There's parts of New York, whether it's like Greenpoint, Brooklyn, Far Rockaway, Harlem, like there's so many parts of New York all throughout the five boroughs that once upon a time these places were dumpster fires. Like they were terrible. But then you fast forward a couple years, they fix some buildings, they put some yoga studios and Starbucks in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden the streets don't exist no more. So what does that tell you? That tells you the streets never existed. It's not a real place. It's a mindset. And as soon as you get rid of the people and those mindsets, it's no longer a factor. So I don't mean to go on a tangent here, but still, I'm just trying to make the point that I don't care about the streets. However, I think it's fascinating that a lot of these street rappers are trying to now distance themselves from the streets in order to protect Young Thug, because that's what this is all about. This is all about trying to save face for Young Thug, because they know that right now he looks crazy. Right now he looks like a hypocrite. He looks like a major hater. He looks like somebody who he looks like somebody who is grasping for straws when it comes to trying to maintain this cool aura that he used to have. That's what he looks like, honestly. That's just the reality of the situation. And again, they're trying to save face. So they're trying to say, oh, F the streets. It didn't cause us anything but trauma. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. Of course, the streets caused you nothing but trauma. Who told, like, what made you think it wasn't gonna cause you trauma? Guys, I'm younger than these artists. However, I'm not that much younger. So I know that there was more than enough evidence out there telling these dudes, showing these dudes that this lifestyle was a dead end road. And if you take that path, you get what you deserve. And they did it anyway. But we're supposed to feel bad for them. We're supposed to believe this lie that they had no other choice. Bullshit. And now that it's convenient, you're trying to pivot away from it. But here's the problem. You're trying to pivot away from it, but you're not gonna pivot away from it creatively. You're gonna still rap about street shit. You're still gonna pop your shit on all these songs and act like you're about to put hits out on people. So are you really distancing yourself from it? No. Rappers do this all the time. Whenever they get out of jail or whenever they may have snitched and they're trying to save face, they try to act like they're gonna pivot away from making street music, but then in the end they go right back to it. They're gonna go right back to it. Now, I wouldn't be against it if people started to be more upfront with telling people that this is not meant to be taken seriously. We are abandoning the concept of real, and we are only doing entertainment, and we're going to turn this into WWE. I would be cool with it if that's the approach people had, but that's not the approach they're going to have. The approach they're going to have is they're still going to want to try to be perceived as the toughest people in the room, as if they're the illest. Well, if you ever saw the movie Belly, you know the quote, like, you the illest nigga in Nebraska. They're gonna still act like that. They're still going to act like that. Instead of just going all the way and saying, hey bro, this is strictly entertainment. I've been telling people for years that what needs to happen in hip hop is there needs to be a moment where everybody lets go of this obsession with having to be quote unquote real. And I have to put it in quotations because unfortunately in hip hop, the only thing that people perceive to be real is anything that is violent. When it comes to all the other people in hip hop, all the other rappers who make music about other topics, and they have other lanes that they occupy, these people are never seen as real. The only thing that's considered real is the people that are the most violent and the most self-destructive. I've been telling people for years it would be in hip-hop's best interest to abandon the concept of real and just embrace going into the route where you're being looked at more so as WWE. Everybody knows wrestling is fake. It ain't a secret. We all know wrestling is fake, bro. Kayfabe has been dead forever. Everybody knows wrestling is fake. There's still real risk and real injuries, but in general, we all know that it's scripted. It's not meant to be taken seriously. These guys and girls are just actors, and they're just performers. If we took that approach in hip hop, not only do I think hip hop could elevate creatively, I also think a lot of these rappers would stop throwing their lives away, like K Flock. Some of these idiots are still saying free K Flock. Nah, fuck it. He's in jail for what he's in jail for. It is what it is. Let him rot. Is that mean to say? Yes, it is. But guess what? If he was somehow miraculously freed, do you really think someone like him was gonna learn his lesson? No. It is what it is. Y'all want to cause all this destruction, but then when it's time to take accountability, y'all don't want to do it. But then simultaneously, y'all want to distance yourself from it. But then simultaneously, y'all want to still try to embrace that reputation as if you're still the hardest out. And again, it seems ridiculous. If you really want to say F the streets, go all the way and say from now on, we're not making anything real. We're not going to embrace the concept of being real. We're only going to just make entertainment. It's not something you should take seriously. See, at the end of the day, guys like Little Tekka and Slim Jesus, those guys were ahead of their time. Because when they came out, both of those guys from the jump, they literally had disclaimers at the beginning of the video saying that these are props, this ain't real, this is just entertainment, blah blah blah, yada yada. They both were coming out in interviews saying, well, I don't do this and do that. I might have known some people who did this and that, but that's not me, blah blah blah. I'm making music. They did what they should have done, and they were bashed for it. They were clowned for it. Because a lot of y'all dumbasses wanted to say, well, that ain't real. That ain't real. They just perpetrating. But guess what? In reality, that's the route that rappers should go. Straight up, that's the route. If you're somebody making street-oriented music, that's the route you should go. You should go the route of from the get-go, not associating with it truly, making sure there's a making sure that there is a distinct difference set between you, the person, compared to you, the artist, so people understand that it's nothing more than a character. But y'all don't want to do that, which is why it's laughable when people like 21 Savage and the rest of these people are saying, oh, we're saying F the streets. Okay, y'all are saying F the streets until you put out your next album, and then you're going to talk about how you got 30 bodies, and if people ask you, hey, are you making this and that up, you're gonna claim that everything is real, you're the realest out, you're the realest that the world's ever seen, you're realer than real, you're harder than hard, you're tougher than tough, you're all this bullshit. It's just a lot of mixed messaging that is all happening in the name of just trying to protect one guy. And it's not genuine. That's the part that disappoints me. It's not coming from a genuine place of these guys recognizing that, hey, we may need to go in a different direction creatively. Let's distance ourselves from this thing. No, it's coming strictly from a perspective of you guys aren't selling like you used to. And so now y'all are getting desperate, grasping for straws because you're trying to hurry up and save face before it becomes obvious that you're starting to decline. So now you're trying to pivot and rebrand, even though in reality, y'all aren't really going to rebrand. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm out. And one more thing. Again, like Lil Woody pointed out, if these guys had been able to successfully blackball Gunna, if they had been able, mind you, if they truly said F the streets, they wouldn't have said Gunna was a rat. They wouldn't have dogged Gunna out the way they did over the past 2 years. That wouldn't have happened. it wouldn't have happened. They would have just came straight up and said, bro, I just wanna talk to my Thug would have just came out from the jump and said, I just want to talk to my brother and I just want to get an explanation, man. This shit hurt. And that would have been the end of it. And then maybe they could have reconciled and been cool again and got back to the music. But that's not what happened. What happened is, again, while Thugger was in jail, they were trying to coordinate a black ball. Once he got out of jail, they were still trying to coordinate a black ball. It didn't work. Gunna's still putting out bangers. He's been on a hotter streak than they have been. He's outselling them at this point. And now, because their singles aren't hitting like they used to, and because the album sales or streams they're not hitting like they used to either. They're all, now you want to pivot. Again, it's very disingenuous, which I think is a shame.